Hey everyone! In today's video, I want to take you on a little trip down memory lane, all the way back to 1990, when the very first movie about four green turtles and their rat mentor hit the big screen. Before this movie, there were already plenty of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles variations, comics, video games, and even a cartoon series. But in this video, I won't be covering all those versions. If you are interested in a video that explores all the different takes on the Turtles, from the original comics to the latest animated series, let me know in the comments or give this video a like. The more support it gets, the more I'll know you'd actually want to see that kind of content. And as always, if you learned something new from this video, drop a like. If everything I say is old news to you, feel free to hit that dislike with a clear conscience. Let's get into it. The iconic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were created by two artists, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. They first appeared in a comic book published by Mirage Studios in 1984. The very first issue had a print run of just 3,000 copies, and over the years, it became a true collector's item, originally sold for $1.50. Copies of that first edition are now worth between $2,500 and $4,000, depending on condition. Even more impressive, the very first sketch of the Ninja Turtles, drawn together by Eastman and Laird, was sold at auction in May 2012 for a whopping $71,700. The Ninja Turtles made their first appearance on TV in the animated series of the same name, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which premiered in 1987. The theme song from that show was so catchy that every kid in the 90s knew it by heart. And honestly, even today, most people could probably hum the tune without thinking twice. That's how insanely popular the Turtles were. They became such a cultural phenomenon that when people heard the names Raphael, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Leonardo, their first thought wasn't of Renaissance artists and sculptors. It was of four pizza-loving ninja brothers. Their popularity was on par with heroes like Batman and Superman, so it was only natural that someone would eventually decide to bring them to the big screen in a live-action movie. Originally, the idea for a Ninja Turtles movie came about in the mid-1980s. Even before the first animated series aired. The plan was to create a direct adaptation of the comic books. However, no studio wanted to take the risk, thinking the project was doomed to fail. That changed when Golden Harvest, a Hong Kong-based company, stepped in. They saw the film as a chance to break into the international market and took the leap. And honestly, I can say with full confidence, the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie is the most successful and well-crafted film adaptation the franchise has ever had. Even the more recent Turtles movies just don't hit the same, and it's easy to see why. Director Steve Barron and his team put in an incredible amount of work, and most importantly, they chose the perfect direction, crafting an entire film in the style of classic old-school kung fu movies. Alright, let's talk a bit about the plot, just in case someone watching this isn't familiar with the Ninja Turtles. I mean, I'm not sure such people even exist, but if you're out there, drop a comment and tell me, how have you never watched the cartoons, the movies, or read the comics? I'm genuinely curious. So, the story kicks off when a canister of radioactive ooze, called mutagen, falls into the sewers of New York and breaks open. A group of turtles living down there accidentally come into contact with it and mutate into humanoid teenage turtles. They're soon discovered by Splinter, a rat who was also exposed to the mutagen and mutated as well. Splinter names the turtles Michelangelo, Donatello, Raphael, and Leonardo, and raises them as his own, teaching them the ways of the ninja. Through a series of events, they befriend a TV reporter named April O'Neil and a masked vigilante known as Casey Jones. Together, they take on the evil Oroku Saki, better known as the Shredder, the Turtles' main villain, and a serious threat to the city. And that's where the adventure really begins. Let's start with the costumes. They were created by Jim Henson's studio, the same legendary team behind Sesame Street and the movie Labyrinth. Even though the suits were incredibly well made, they still kept tearing during filming, which honestly makes sense, considering the actors were jumping, flipping, and fighting in them. On top of that, the suits were so thick and heavy that wearing them felt like spending hours in a sauna. Fun fact, the actor who played Raphael actually suffered from claustrophobia, and after every take, he would frantically rip off his turtle mask in panic. Each shell also contained animatronic components that weighed about 27 kilograms, around 60 pounds, making the suits even more challenging to perform in. It really puts things into perspective. The way movies are made today, which doesn't even come close to how tough filming used to be back then. To make the Turtles appear more human-like, they needed to be able to talk, with moving mouths, eyebrows, and facial expressions. To pull this off, small electric motors were installed inside their shells, connected by wires to the heads of the suits. The entire system was powered by a battery pack, strapped around the actors' waists. This setup allowed puppeteers to remotely control the characters' facial expressions in real time, bringing them to life on screen. As for their mentor, Splinter, he was essentially a highly sophisticated puppet, and it took 3 separate puppeteers working together just to make him move convincingly. The villainous look of Shredder actually came from the most unexpected source, a cheese grater. One day, Kevin Eastman was so exhausted while doing the dishes that he started goofing around. He slipped a couple of graters onto his arms and began running from room to room with them. That weird moment of burnout sparked the idea for a villain. Originally, they joked about naming him the Grater, but thankfully, they settled on Shredder and a legend was born. Funny enough, in the original comics, Shredder wasn't even meant to be a major character. He actually dies in one of the very first issues. But over time, he grew into such an iconic figure that he eventually ranked number 39 on IGN's list of the top 100 comic book villains of all time. As for his costume, there's honestly not much to say. It's cool, but nothing out of this world. And here's another fun fact. The evil ninja group he created, the Foot Clan, is actually a parody of Marvel's Hand Clan, the group that appears in Daredevil comics. Fun fact, the actors who played the Ninja Turtles also had other roles in the film. Josh Pius, who played Raphael, also appeared as a taxi passenger right after Raphael jumps onto the hood of the cab. Mitchell Insisti, who played Michelangelo, also showed up as a pizza delivery guy bringing food down to the sewers. Leif Tilden, who played Donatello, had a brief role as one of the gang members who confront April at the subway station. And David Foreman, who played Leonardo, also appeared as a Foot Clan member during the warehouse fight between Casey and Tatsu. Speaking of Tatsu, the actor who played him, Toshishiro Obata, is actually a real-life martial arts master. He even created his own sword-fighting style called Shinkendo, which is now taught in over 90 schools around the world. Interestingly, to hide the fact that the turtle costumes were bulky and limited in mobility, the filmmakers used a clever trick. Dialogue scenes were shot at 23 frames per second, and fight scenes at 22 frames per second. When played back at the standard 24 frames per second, everything looked just a bit faster and smoother, helping make the action feel more dynamic. Also, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has quite a few deleted scenes. For example, there was a whole sequence shot on a farm that never made it into the final cut. Unfortunately, the full footage seems to be lost. Only a few brief clips and behind-the-scenes photos remain. There's also an alternate ending to the film. In it, April brings a comic book about the Turtles to a comic publisher. After reading her story, he tells her it's too far-fetched to be believable. Meanwhile, outside his window, the 4 Ninja Turtles are watching him, and Michelangelo almost falls on the ledge before reacting to the publisher's words with the classic Mikey-style "really" expression. As expected, the $13.5 million invested in the film paid off handsomely, with the movie grossing over $200 million worldwide. That success immediately greenlit the production of a second film about the Green Brothers. Interestingly, after the release of the first film, around 250,000 turtles were imported into the UK to meet the demands of young fans who wanted to keep turtles as pets. For the second movie, the budget was doubled, and a year later, the sequel hit theaters. Unfortunately, it didn't achieve higher box office numbers. In fact, the earnings dropped, even though the film was just as action-packed as its predecessor and was slightly reoriented toward a younger teenage audience. Nevertheless, the revenue was still sufficient to fund a third installment in 1993, just as the popularity of the Turtles was starting to wane. This time, the foursome traveled back in time. However, even loyal fans reacted coolly, and understandably so. The Turtles had lost their puppet-like charm and had become noticeably dumber compared to the previous films. By the way, in the films released after 1990, you might have noticed that the actress who played April was replaced. that happened because the original actress wasn't invited back after she complained on TV about the 6-day work schedule and the excessive violence in the movie. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 barely managed to break even, but it did. However, that essentially marked the end of their cinematic journey. Just like this video, I hope you found it interesting and learned something new. So don't be lazy, give it a like. And on that note, I'm signing off. See you soon.